Got started in the aviation in World War II. Dad was a naval officer and brought home the little models that you had to identify. So we quizzed him on what a Zero was and the different Japanese airplanes, because he was going into the theater over there. While he was gone overseas, we started building model airplanes and went up through rubber models and gliders and gasoline U-control models, and then just touched on radio control and ran out of money, I guess. First light plane experience, we fish up in Canada, and we went in with a bush pilot in a Norseman, which was an enormous big fabric airplane that the Canadians built during the war, and it was on floats to go into our fishing camp. And we've since had the Havilland Beaver number 3, the third one built, is still operating up there. Twin Beaches on floats. Now they've converted to a Cessna Caravan, which isn't near as much fun. Flight experience starts way back when I was 9 years old. Dad came home and I was smoking catalpa pods behind the garage with a bunch of 14-year-old guys. And he whipped my fanny really good, to the point it would be child abuse nowadays. And Mom shamed him a little bit, and she said you have to reason with your children instead of beating them. And so he said if I didn't smoke till I was 21, he'd buy me a pony. So I'm up at college at KU studying engineering, and he calls me and said, I'm going to take flying lessons. Would you take flying lessons in lieu of that pony? And I said, certainly. So he and I took flying lessons together in 57, 58, got our licenses, and we're in a club with 24 members and 3 airplanes. And as long as I was his son, I could participate in the club. But when I got married, I got thrown out of the club and went without flying for years. Got into EAA, was president of Chapter 91 for several years. Went down and bought a Stinson 108-2, flew it for 24 years, and enjoyed it very much. Flew all over, went to Alaska, Florida, Texas, Washington, D.C., went all over in it. The way we got into the Monocoupe is my son flies a 1940 Taylorcraft, and he got to park with the antiques in Oshkosh, and I had a Classic, and I had to park with the Classics. And his Taylorcraft parked in amongst a bunch of Monocoupes. He said, Dad, we ought to get a Monocoupe. So that kind of started us on that. And we found this one down in Wichita, Kansas, or Wellington, Kansas. This gentleman had a daughter getting ready to go to college, so I guess I helped put his daughter through college. Brought the airplane home. Engine was in parts and pieces, never been really assembled as an engine. And we had Forrest Lovely up by Minneapolis, the guru on Warner engines, built it. Meantime, we started working on ailerons and wings here in Kansas City. And about that time, we started DJ Short on making some modifications to the fuselage to take the bigger engine, bringing it up to a Warner 90W configuration that was stressed for 145 horsepower. Finished the wing, delivered it down to Short Shop. My son was working for DJ there for a while, and they did all the cowlings, the cowling that's on my aircraft. And since he's gone on to other things, and DJ painted the airplane, an expert at painting, expert in metalwork, good craftsman all the way around. Took longer than we expected, cost more than we expected, but we're thoroughly enjoying it. It's a piece of history we're trying to preserve and keep for other generations. Old planes are kind of a piece of living history, and you dig in and find out who owned it, where it came from. You find parts the same way through relationships with people. The internet obviously has helped. In years past, it was mostly relationships. You talk at fly-ins and you find somebody that's got the carburetor that you need, or you find the wheels that you need, or the patterns for the ribs that you need. Now a lot of that comes on the internet. It's not a wise financial decision. It is very enjoyable if you want to say your fund is worth $5,000 a year and discount what you do by something like that and spend quite a few years at it, then it's economically feasible. Your time, you can't even put it in at 50 cents an hour. The number of miles that I've driven. We went and got the original airplane down at Wellington, Kansas. We bought a second Monocoupe for some of the parts in Colorado, drug it home. We've made trips, numerous trips to fly-ins and Oshkosh and Blacksburg, Sun and Fun, Casa Grande, getting parts ideas and learning how to do it. All been very enjoyable. The people are very enjoyable, and most of them want to help you succeed with what you're doing. But it's not a financially rewarding process. Flying is a bug, contagious. It gets in your blood. Again, it's not economical to get from A to B flying unless your time is worth, $500 an hour or something like that. It's an enjoyable experience. It's a learning experience. You learn to plan ahead, plan for your airport, an alternate airport, plan to get there with enough fuel, plan your timing, plan your weather, and it is a good mental exercise for, frankly, the rest of life. That you just think ahead and think of all the possibilities that can go wrong, and you try to solve all of those, and you get there. And you have to be flexible with these old airplanes. The weather can close in and you have an unexpected stop somewhere, and generally you can find something fun or some people that are fun, and don't just take it as a delay, take it as kind of an adventure. We have included in that the $100 hamburger that you fly down to Paola, 18 miles south of here. We've got a barbecue joint down there, and we have a camaraderie of people who come out here on Saturday at noon, and we either go into town and eat, or we've taken 8 or 10 airplanes each individually down to Paola to the barbecue joint to have lunch. It's a camaraderie, it's a fun thing to do, it's an outlet, and we enjoy it. Flying is a three-dimensional freedom. Cars and motorcycles, you're limited on 2 dimensions. And it's a freedom, and there's a honing of skills, to continuing education, I guess you would say. It opens up vistas. My trip to Alaska was the most fun that 2 old men can have and not break too many laws. And we just thoroughly enjoyed going up there and back and seeing. And when we saw an airport we liked, we landed. And if we liked it, we camped out there. And if we didn't, we got back in the airplane and went to the next one. Very friendly people, very helpful people, all along. If you're thinking about getting into antique airplanes, classic airplanes, or ultralights, or anything, EAA is an excellent way of learning about it. If it's antique, the Antique Airplane Association up at Blacksburg, the different fly-ins, the one at Blacksburg, the one at Broadhead, Wisconsin, MAC, Midwest Aircraft, are all helpful. One other way to get acquainted with aviation is through museums. We have a beautiful one at Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Obviously, the Smithsonian in Washington is wonderful, but locally, we have a museum I got involved with at Marshall, Missouri. The moniker of Wichita and the Center of Aviation should be Marshall, Missouri Center of Aviation. The Studebaker dealer in Marshall, Howard Beasley and Russell Nicholas, became involved with surplus after World War I of aviation materials. And they bought 600 standard airplanes. The standard looks like a Jenny, but it was the second one for a trainer for World War I. Brought them back to Marshall, rehabbed them. They had the largest flying school in the world in Marshall, the largest aviation supply house in Marshall, and they had the factory there. And you could come, buy an airplane, get your mechanic's license, get your pilot's license, and they'd teach you how to be a barnstormer, and away you went to make money. We have started a museum there. It's fully functional. We have the NB ND3 that was designed and built. We have the ND8 that was designed and built in Marshall. And quite a museum collection of artifacts of these two. We also have a World War II era and a World War I era in the museum, model engines, and educational for children. It's been quite involved, and you can learn where aviation came from and the cradle of it. Obviously, Lindbergh flying across the ocean. Before that, the Wright brothers are the impetus that got all this thing started. But it's all very educational and very intriguing to see where we've come in the few years since 1903.